Hello and welcome. I want to say happy Thursday to everybody. Thank you for joining me on the Fit Live platform. I'm so excited. I'm always excited. I always have good energy because you know what? We only got one life. And it's very important that we take advantage of every single opportunity, every single moment. And today I have somebody that is going to be sharing some information with you that will hopefully empower you, educate you, and uplift you. And before I go into that, my team would be upset with me if I did not really share. If this is your first time to Fit Live, I just want to share a little bit about this platform. I created this platform back in 2017. I left corporate America to live my passion and my dream, and we created this because we wanted to highlight both the journey and the success stories of professionals, entrepreneurs of color, and Black women. We wanted to explore the important and necessary information to help guide, inspire, encourage, and just help business owners and professionals of color to be as equipped as they can with specific tools, tips, and tricks for them to not only prosper in business, but to prosper in life. The question I always ask when I start this show is, are you ready to be fit? Are you ready to be fit? You might ask, what does fit mean? Fit stands for faith, intuition, and tenacity. Faith is your ability to see the unseen. Faith is, in the Bible, it says, the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things unseen. Intuition, to be able to trust yourself. Tenacity, just willing to go the extra yard. And so today, if you're not, our goal is to get you fit. And with Mr. Ron Busby, y'all don't know how excited I am. I have Mr. Ron Busby on my platform. Ron is from Oakland, California. I'm going to give you his bio. I'm not going to read Ron verbatim the entire bio because we'd be here for a while. And I really want people to just get a gist of who you are for those who might not know who Ron Busby is. But this is where my age comes in, y'all. I gotta put on my glasses so I can see something. Give me a moment. Hold on. As president and CEO of the U.S. Black Chamber Inc., USBC, Ron Busby Sr. possesses a wealth of business management skills and a strong commitment to serving Black business owners. Mr. Busby is a former successful business owner himself and has been recognized as one of the nation's best CEOs, a native of Oakland, California, and a graduate with honors from both Florida A&M, excuse me, and Clark Atlanta University. Ron Busby has dedicated himself to empowering of the Black business community. Mr. Busby is a member of the Alpha Psi. I'm gonna mess that up. All your fraternity brothers gonna be mad. The Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, and a father of two amazing sons who I happen to know. And he currently resides in Washington, D.C. So without that, I'm not gonna read anymore. And plus, I'm gonna take my glasses off. Wow. Now we about to get down to business. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I see you guys. You're definitely showing up. I want to say before we get started, this is an opportunity for you. And if you don't take advantage of this opportunity, then I say shame on you. Grab a notepad, grab a piece of paper, take notes. Really use this as an opportunity for you to enrich your life. This man is taking time out of his schedule. As a matter of fact, he's in DC. He's 3 hours different. He's ready to go home, y'all. He's ready to go home and call it a day, or he's already at home. I'm not sure where you are, Ron, I'm assuming. But he is here with us, provide us a wealth of knowledge. So I need you to tap in. I need you to ask him questions. Please do join. I have Dr. Will Moreland. When he says to you, my big brother, I don't know who Dr. Will Moreland is, but Dr. Will Moreland knows you, Mr. Busby. Everybody, wherever you are, put your cups down and just please, in silence, applaud the welcome of Mr. Ron Busby.
Cheryl, it is wonderful to be here. And had it been anybody else, maybe I would be on my way upstairs. But it is wonderful to be here. I always claim Oakland. Oakland really gave me the foundation of who I became and who I am now. And so, because of that, when you call, I picked up the phone, and when you offered me the opportunity to come back and speak, of course I had to say yes. And so I'm
Well,
honored to be here with you and your guests.
Ron, I'm going to tell you, it means the world to me that you did do that. And that's really a testament to who you are as a businessman and as a community leader. And I've seen you, I thank you for doing it for me, but I've really watched you and you extend yourself to the entire community and now across the country with 140 plus chambers that are a part of the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce. And I'm proud to serve as vice chair of the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce. But with that said, we only have an hour of your time, and I want to make sure we use it as efficiently as we possibly can. And if anybody's on board, tag a friend, call somebody. If they're not on here, we need to invite them on here. And while Ron is answering my question, I'm going to be tapping in and making sure I'm broadcasting live on my personal Facebook page. But my first question to you, Ron, is there are a lot of people, there's a lot of us who do know you, and a lot of us are familiar with your legacy and your background. But for those who don't, I would love for you to share the story of your humble beginnings. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that are out there really searching right now, Ron, especially in this pandemic, of how they pivot and how they survive. And you, while you are amazingly successful beyond measure, you have had your fair share of challenges and how you maneuvered. But I'd like you to share with the audience a little bit about you and why are you an entrepreneur? First off, let's just start there.
Um, well, I guess my journey starts in Oakland, actually at John Marshall Elementary School, where many of us used to walk to school past Foothill Square. And early on in my elementary days, I remember going to a donut store, the donut shop that we had at Foothill Square, and they would sell day old donuts. And I would buy the day old donuts for a nickel. We would all have to walk to school. It's probably about another mile or so away from Foothill Square. And when I got to school, I would sell those day old donuts that I purchased for a nickel. I'd sell them for a quarter or 50 cents. And so I understood the value of being my own boss, as well as the importance of being able to trade products and services for funding. I was fortunate enough to graduate from high school there in Oakland, and had the opportunity to go pretty much to any college I wanted to on the West Coast. Got accepted into a program in my senior year at Stanford University. And I remember attending on a track scholarship, but the first day we were all in the auditorium and they said, look to your left, look to your right. One of you are not going to be here in 4 years. And I thought to myself, well, education should not be a competitive sport. Education is something that we are paying for, or that we are getting an opportunity to explore. And I didn't feel like I wanted to be in a situation where I was not going to be acknowledged for who I was and what I was trying to gain. I made the decision to transfer to Florida A&M, historically black college university. And my first day there, they said, look to your left, look to your right, get to know each other, go into business together, get married together. These are the future leaders of this country. And to this day, I still have great friends, great partnerships. And even as I do my current job at the U.S. Black Chamber, I still call on many of those relationships to move our agenda forward. After college, had the opportunity to work in corporate America, did 10 years in combination of Exxon, Office Systems Division, Xerox, IBM, and left as a senior VP at Coca-Cola Fountain Sales. I remember while I was at Coca-Cola, I would get to work every morning at 7 a.m. and would not leave until 7 p.m.
Wow.
because I just didn't know the industry. So I was trying to gain as much acumen as I possibly could. So I didn't mind working the 4 hours a day to get my skill set where it needed to be.
Right.
There was a white gentleman there. He was 56 years old, and let's just assume his name was Joe. And Joe would get to work every morning at 9, and he would leave each evening at 5. And he was very successful. He knew the industry, knew his customers very well. Um, and then about 3 months into my career there, our supervisor, both Joe and I, called me in his office and said, Ron, I want you to pack your bags. And I'm thinking, damn, I'm getting ready to get fired. And he said, no. I said, well, where am I going? He said, well, I want you to move into Joe's office. And I said, okay, well, where's Joe going? And he said, Joe's going to be reporting to you. That day, I decided I had to make an exit strategy because I didn't want to work another 30 years to have someone half my age come in to work an extra 4 hours only to have me reporting to them. While I was at Coca-Cola, our largest customer was McDonald's. At the time, the McDonald's program had basically a black program where you could work off buying your franchise. So you would go as an operator, learn the operation of owning of McDonald's, and that would go towards the purchase price. And so for months, I'd work at Coca-Cola from 7 to 7, change my clothes in the car, and go work at McDonald's from 8 until midnight, flipping burgers and cleaning grills and dropping fries. But what I understood and learned was McDonald's was successful not because they made a great French fry or they made a great Big Mac, but it was because they had a great system.
Right.
And so to me, it was important for me to learn the process of creating systems to be able to develop my program. And so I thought, well, the same French fry you get in San Antonio, you get in Seattle, you get in San Francisco, you get in Singapore. And so when I thought to myself, I was going to go into business for myself, I thought I needed to be able to make sure I created a model very similar. I had a younger sister who was still in Oakland. She was getting ready to go off to law school. And she said, for the amount of time and money that you're investing in this McDonald's program, you can come home and take over our family business. Now, mind you, our family business, many of you guys know there in Oakland, was a janitorial service.
Right.
We have 5 employees, my mother, my father, my 2 sisters, and myself. The year was 1989. I was making about $150,000 a year salary at
Wow.
Coke. Our family business annualized revenue was about $150,000 a year. Everyone
Wow.
thought I was crazy to leave corporate America to move back into the same bunk bed that I had when I was in the 3rd grade. Everybody thought, what are you doing, man? You've lost your mind to leave this great career to come back home and be a janitor.
Right.
But I really had a vision of becoming a large firm. And so part of that was to double the annual revenue every year. And so we went from 115,000 to ultimately the 21 million and became the largest black janitorial service in the country.
You know, Ron, you just dropped like all kind of wisdom on these people, like all and all, and I think that's been 5 minutes. I don't even think it was 5 minutes. And the thing that I took away from that was not only a very strong work ethic, but also a vision. And the Bible says where there's no vision, the people perish. And having a vision on what you saw. So no matter where you were along the path of your career, whether it was at Coca-Cola, whether it was at corporate structure, whether it was at starting your business, doing the you made a decision at some point when it was time to elevate, when it was time to sit back, when it was time to move. Having those instinctive skills, which I refer to as the intuitive part of being fit, right? It's the faith to believe that you can. You demonstrated all of that. And then the intuition and the tenacity just to move on it. If you were to give somebody some advice today and how they're navigating through their business right now, and whether you fold or do you keep on pushing, like where is that thin line? And intuitively, how did you know, Ron? Because you made some really great choices. Those were blessings. I want to say angels were looking out for you, but there had to be something else. Can you give advice to those individuals who are struggling, and when do you pivot and when do you don't, or how do you listen to yourself to know when to pivot and not?
You know, it's funny, when I came back to Oakland, even family members and close friends thought, man, you're crazy. You left Oakland to go to college, to go work in corporate America, only to come back to run a family business. You could have just spent the last 15 years just running that family business. But I think people need to make sure that they're continuing to educate themselves. Part of the problem that we have as small business owners is we only know what we know. And until you can expose yourself to other operations, how people are actually growing their own businesses, you'll never know how to grow your own. And so a couple of things that I did is I am a continuous reader. When I got to $7 million, and I'll lovely tell that story because a lot of folk in Oakland had a great deal of input into my success. Mm-hmm. But I ended up reading a book called Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? And it was about the autobiography of Reginald Lewis. He was the first Black billionaire. He was also a Kappa man. And by reading that book, I understood the journey that he took to become a billionaire, and it was through acquisitions. I think so many people nowadays are saying, I think I want to start a business. What do I love doing? What am I passionate about? What am I, don't mind working 16, 14 hours a day? What do I mind? What don't I mind putting my own money into? And they are struggling or they fail and they're wondering why. And I say, because you was in the wrong business. People think that they're looking for the next new mousetrap, right? And because we're in the era of great technology, folk feel like they have to create the newest fangled product and or service. I was different. I believe that systems and good business management could give me the sustainability that I needed, regardless of the industry or the business that I chose. And so I have always been the person that believed that the glass wasn't half full, but it was really overflowing. I just needed to make sure that I stayed in that path, even when other folk were dropping off. I always kept my head down and focused. You and I had a chance to talk earlier this week, and you were saying that you had this whole idea of this gig economy where people were having multiple revenue streams.
Yes.
And I told you that my philosophy is I just wanted one, but I wanted to be the best at it. I wanted to stay focused on it. And I did not need the distractions that so many other opportunities as well as challenges place on a business owner. And so for me, it wasn't so much about, well, let me have 4 or 5 irons in the pot or in the fire. I wanted that one iron to be extremely hot, so that it could have the most impact when it was time for me to move forward. And so I've always been very focused on what it is I've been trying to do. Many folk there in Oakland know that I was married, ended up leaving Oakland to move to Phoenix, Arizona. And when I got to Phoenix, Phoenix was totally different from an Oakland environment.
Very different, I'd say. Not just a little, I'd say a lot, in many different ways, huh?
Yeah, I had one of my employees who was also from Oakland. His father owned a business like my dad, and he ended up moving to Phoenix and said, hey man, there isn't anyone in Phoenix doing business like you, and you should look at doing business in Arizona. At the time when I sold my business, I had a non-compete that said I could not do business anywhere I was currently doing business, and I was doing business in multiple states around the country, including Hawaii, but not in Phoenix. And so when I moved to Phoenix, again, started with nothing, no relationships, but had a skill set, had a brand that was now being recreated, and grew that second firm from 0 up to ultimately $7 million. And while I was there, I had the opportunity to make a lot of great relationships in that town. And the thing I learned while I was in Oakland was how to lead. I think I failed when I first got there. And so a lot of the folk that are on the call remember that I was the president of 100 Black Men when I was there. And I came in with a lot of other young brothers, and we immediately tried to take over the organization in the leadership role. And I did not succeed there because I had not earned the right and earned the relationships of the other members. And so when I moved to Phoenix, Arizona, I truly took the lessons that I had learned while I was in Oakland to become a better leader in Phoenix. And that was all part of my development of becoming who I am today. I got involved in the local Black Chamber and the local church. Both of those institutions gave me the opportunity to get involved, to do the work, to volunteer, and to show leadership skills. It gave me a great opportunity to then become on the governor's council. And if there are folk that are here, you remember the governor of Arizona was the first governor to then come out to endorse the then Senator Barack Obama. I had a chance to work with him early on in his campaign. We all know how that ended up. He made a statement, "I won't forget you." I thought, yeah, right. You know, that's what politicians say.
That part, right? that part, I get it.
But after a prayer on a Friday evening about what the Lord had left for me, I ended up getting a phone.
A praying man. Did you hear that? But keep going. I'm sorry, Ron.
I got a phone call on that Sunday evening by a gentleman out of California, Aubrey Stone, who said they were thinking about starting a new national organization, a U.S. Black Chamber, and he wanted me to lead it. At the time, there was no U.S. Black Chamber. There were 6 Black chambers that were interested in participating in a new organization. I moved to D.C. without any relationships, without any funding. Brought my 2 sons here with me. At the time, we had 6 chambers. Today, we have over 148 chambers, 6 in the continent of Africa, 1 in Canada, and a membership base of over 360,000 Black-owned businesses.
Oh my God, Ron, that's just like you just dropped all these nuggets. So one of the questions that came up earlier was how do you, I think the question was, I'm going to go back to it, but how do you maneuver as a small business in this pandemic? What would be your recommendation for how do you maneuver as a small business? Do you have any advice for this? Dr. Will, I can't find it in the comments right now, but.
Well, Dr. Will, I know you are an expert of giving advice, and so I will make sure that I try to be as accurate as possible. First off, we lost 41% of Black-owned businesses across the United States. And we as a community really suffered what we call a trifecta effect. The first one was the virus itself. And we lost 46,000 Black Americans last year due to the COVID virus unnecessarily. And many of us didn't have the option of working at home or commuting via internet. We were called essential workers, and so had to actually go and service the rest of the community. And so many of us have lost our lives. So the first leg of the trifecta was the virus itself. The second leg was the stimulus package or the lack thereof. There was a $349 billion commitment made on a Friday. It was the largest stimulus package that this country has seen. By Saturday, $250 billion of those dollars had already been awarded to 50 publicly white traded firms. Those firms never had to answer the question, were you impacted by COVID? Did you have to let go of your employees? Are you losing revenue? It was, hey, I have a relationship with my banker. Let's go get a tea time Saturday morning. By the time they were rounding the 9th hole, they were establishing relationships to be able to get funding that was ultimately passed on. And the majority of Black-owned businesses, 76%, said they either got no funding or very little at all. And so the second leg was really about the lack of funding for our businesses. And then the third leg was really the murder of George Floyd. And we all witnessed a man being murdered on TV and the police officer got away. And because of that, we all collectively said our lives matter, thus the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, what I will say to Dr. Will, many Black businesses did not make it through, had nothing to do with, which I hate that I've heard over these last few months about financially illiteracy. Excuse my French, but that's BS. Black business owners have more postgraduate degrees, the most educated ethnic group of business owners in this country. What we did not have is banking relationships. And so when the payroll protection plan was created, it was created for the employee, not the employer. It was to save the company's employees. Well, of the 2.6 million Black-owned businesses that we own and operate across the country, 2.5 million have no employees. So they're not mom or pop. They're not mom and pop. They're mom or pop. They're single employer firms, so they could not participate in the stimulus package. What we do have collectively as a community are firms like yours, Cheryl. You're a single employer firm. We got barbershops and beauty salons and restaurants and thousands, hundreds of thousands of businesses across the country that are single employer firms. But we also have firms that have 1099 employees, that have subcontractors, that have family members that work for us, as well as cash and carry businesses. But none of them were able to participate in the stimulus package. So many of them weren't able to participate. So the companies that did are the companies that had a great social media presence, that had great banking relationships. And so I tell businesses now, during these periods of time, make sure that you had a great relationship with your bank. There is data. We did a report in 2016 with Rutgers University here on the East Coast, where we did research on Black businesses. And what we found is a few things will happen. One, Cheryl, when you and I go into a bank, we never get called Mr. or Mrs. You're going to get called Cheryl. I'm going to get called Ron. No big deal. Second is, you and I never get an opportunity to speak with the decision maker, someone that can say yes. We're typically handed off to someone that can say no, or maybe, or perhaps they'll pass you on if you meet all the criteria to someone else. Third, they're never going to say thank you, which was ironic, but that was something that we found in the survey. Now, what we have found as business owners is I could be a Black business owner, own my own home, have a white peer live next door to me who's renting his home. I could be a college graduate. My white peer neighbor could be a high school graduate.
Wow.
We could both have the same business plan, go into the same bank, asking for the same $100,000, and a few things are going to happen. You and I, Cheryl, are going to get $40,000. And as a people, a spiritual people, we're going to say, thank you, Jesus. Let me pray over this. I'm going to make it work, because that's what we have done as a people. 90% of businesses fail within the first year. It has nothing to do with how hard we work, what business we were in, our acumen or our skills or our education. We never had enough money going into the situation from the beginning. So the first opportunity we get to need some longevity, we fail because we never had enough money from the get. Now, once we go out of business, that same banker then comes back to our white peer and say, hey, that business plan that you had was a great idea. Here's another one that I know of that just went out of business, and here's the $140,000 that you need. Banking relationships are extremely important. I'm not against technology, but many of us received our funding through fintech. We got a check over the mail, it came to our cell phone, and we took that and ran to the bank. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not against the fintech firms, but I'm old school. I believe in having relationships. I want my banker to know me. I want him to know my long-term strategies. I want him to understand my growth plans so that they will be there along the way with me, as opposed to me just getting a check to get through the next week, the next month, the next few weeks. We've got to be thinking the long-term game as opposed to the short-term solution.
Oh my God, Ron, this is so powerful. And audience, I just hope that, pray that one, if you haven't already tagged a friend, that you're doing that, because information is power. If we keep it to ourselves, it serves us no good as a community. It's about how do we get the word out to as many people as we can, and we got to share. We have to share the information. Ron is here. This is the president of the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce. You can't get no better than this to ask questions about your business. If you're serious about your business and in surviving, especially during these times, then you need to be tagging every friend or business owner that you know to be a part of this dialogue and discussion. The facts that he's giving us and the information that he's giving us is just, it's empowering, it's educating, Ron, and really opened my eyes to a couple of different things. And one of the things I love right now is because we have an audience. We have Nicole Felix, we have Bernard Brooks, we have Mandisa Leachman. The list just keeps growing and the questions are coming in, which to me is really good because it means that people are paying attention. There are some of us who are. One of the things that Nicole asked, and she's also a part of the chamber. Nicole runs our membership, and she said relationships matter, especially with banks. What type of banking institutions should small businesses seek out? Credit unions, community banks, large institutions? What would be your recommendation, Ron?
Well, I will say twofold. One, I don't want us to let the large banks off the hook. The B of A's, the Wells Fargo's, the Truist banks all market to us on a regular basis, and many of us have relationships there. But the CDFIs, the community banks, in my case, the black banks, are where I would tell us to make sure that we develop those relationships. Understand black banks, and I know we have some in Southern California, 70% of the loans that they make are to black homeowners and to black-owned businesses. They understand our challenges and they are set up to help meet our solutions. The U.S. Black Chamber has partnered with Liberty Bank out of Louisiana. They're the largest black bank in the country at this time. And we've established a credit card with them at 9.98%. The average African-American black person is paying somewhere around 20% for the same interest. For the same ability to be able to have credit. So for us, it's about having affordable credit as well as accessible credit. But understand this, many of the small community banks and black-owned banks are having challenges. And you heard over the last few years a lot about banking black, and the U.S. Black Chamber was very instrumental in the whole banking black movement. But banks don't make money when you make a deposit. Banks make money when you take out a loan. When you
Repeat
establish
that again for the people in the back. You need to repeat it for the people in the back, Ron.
for the people in the back, banks make money when you make a loan. When you establish credit and have to pay back an interest rate to a black-owned bank. And so I'm going to ask many of you to look at non-traditional banks to refinance your home or to pay off a student loan or to establish credit via credit card or to buy your next vehicle. That's where we have financial institutions that make money off of the same institutions that the large banks make. Now, let me make this clear to you. During the payroll protection plan, many of the large banks did not get involved with us, not because they didn't necessarily want to do business with Cheryl or Ron, it's because they got paid based upon the size of the loan. If you heard early on, the average size loan during the first round of payroll protection plan was $150,000. $150,000. The average black-owned firm at the time before COVID was $75,480. So it was never set up for them to make loans to us. The average black business was only doing $75,000. They're making loans for payroll for 60 days at $150,000, where we could have been better suited is if we had made the relationships with the community banks, and there were programs called the EIDLE program, which was a $10,000 guaranteed loan. And if you did what was necessary, you didn't have to pay the loan back. But it wasn't marketed to us correctly, because as a community, we didn't want a loan. I didn't want to borrow money based upon a pandemic that I had no idea how long it was going to last, what the impact of that loan was going to be, as well as what the cost of that loan may be to me and my business, as well as not putting any additional debt on a small Black business. Many of our businesses did not get involved with the EIDLE, but that may have been a great program for many of our businesses, but because they didn't market it to us well, it was definitely a challenge.
Wow, wow. This is just so powerful, Ron. And I'm so appreciative to have your voice here to directly connect with the community. You know, I'm going to shift the conversation just a little, but maybe not so much. In that I had the opportunity, along with my president, Kathy Adams, to participate in what for me, Ron, was an experience of a lifetime. Although I have met our Vice President, Kamala Harris, on several different occasions, to be in a conversation with issues that pertaining to our community, where it was a topic of discussion, just meant more to me than anything. It really shifted my paradigm, even to how I show up in my business every day. And you being the leader and really pulling that call together for us to not only talk to VP Kamala Harris, but also to Secretary Treasurer Janet Yellen. And the conversation was rich. It talked about the Recovery Plan Act. There was a question in the comments, and I don't know how much of this you can answer to, and what you can, great. It came from Terry OG. Terry, is that your real last name, OG? But anyway, okay, anyway. So, Ron, it basically says, I watched the last cast with VP Harris and Janet Yellen, but I never heard about any relief for landlords. I have rentals in Nevada, Arkansas, North Carolina, and Oakland. I pay Oakland business taxes, but what about relief for those landlords who still pay mortgages, but still can't collect rent? Thank God most of my tenants pay rent. Praise God for that.
Great question, Mr. OG. In this next round of stimulus, there are definitely conversations to landowners as well as landlords. But let me flip the conversation for you, Mr. OG, and tell you where we have seen many of the challenges for Black-owned businesses, particularly the restaurant industry. What we have heard across the country is that many of our restaurants who were forced to be out of business, not because they didn't have customers, not because they didn't have PPE, but because the landlords were now forcing them to close while at the same time forcing them to pay rent. So they didn't have the capability of getting the funding from the federal government because they didn't have the employees, as well as to be able to offset your rent. And so many of the white landowners and landlords were forcing Black restaurants out on the street. And within weeks, providing white restaurant owners the opportunities to come back in under the same names, many times hiring the same chefs and wait staff, and coming in, giving them 6 months of leisure on their rent control. And so we lost a great deal of numbers of our Black-owned retail stores and restaurants because the landlords did not give us the flexibility of being able to have a long-term relationship. So I appreciate landlords like yourself, as well as your tenants. And it is a full-fledged conversation that is being had here in Washington, D.C. on how we can ensure that the landowners as well as the landlords also have the ability to be able to get in some of the funding. And you'll see that there's $10 billion set aside for landowners and landlords to deal with those types of challenges as well.
Well, you know what, Ron? I am so excited to be here today. I really am. And this information is so, like I said, information is power as long as you put it into action and use it. If it just resides on a shelf, it's not going to help anybody. You got to get into action. But I really want to talk to you. I want to now truly shift the conversation because there is so many great things that the chamber is doing. The U.S. Chamber is in so many different pockets. I'm working with your son, Ron Busby Jr., on the whole Buy Black initiative. We're doing a 2x1 program where we're going to be giving funding. We're working with Ron with that. But there's so many things that you're doing. And I'd like for you to kind of take a moment so that everybody is aware of the initiatives and what you're driving at the U.S. Chamber.
Great, thank you. So the U.S. Black Chamber was founded in 2009, and we're founded on five key pillars. And the first one is advocacy, thus being here in Washington, D.C. And as Cheryl has stated, we have great relationships with this administration. I will say this to your listeners. Usually when you hear the word Black, you think Democrat. And when you hear the word business, many times you think Republican. We are a Black business organization. I don't care who you voted for. I'm here to make sure that your voice as a Black business owner is being carried and your concerns are being heard here in Washington, D.C. I will go back to the original conversation that we were just having about our vice president. Literally a week before that meeting, we were meeting with the White House to discuss the Biden priorities. And we laid out the U.S. Black Chamber's Black Print, our policy priorities, and said, here's where we can work together. Here's where I think you need, from an administration, need to ensure that a Black issue is involved in that. And here's where we can help. And here's where we think we need your help. And so they left the meeting thinking, man, this was really great. It was laid out well. And I say that because many times we get the opportunities to present, but we take it for granted. We don't know who we're talking to. And so we may not give our best game. And in this case, we provided one of our better presentations and they said, this is great. Hold on for a few minutes. And then literally when they came back, it was the vice president's staff saying, hey, Ron, do you think you could pull together something so where we could meet with you? To say this, it was her first public appearance. It was her first announcement. And to have it during Black History Month, as equally as important, to have the Secretary of Treasury, Janet Yellen, with us, because that's where the money is. We can get together and talk about great Black issues, but it really should be about a Black economic agenda. And so for us, it was equally as important to have her in the room as it was to have the vice president. And so our first pillar is really about policy and our voice making sure that it's heard. Our second one is what we've been talking about most of the day, and that is access to capital. Most Black businesses are saying, look, man, great grants are great, and we have several of them, and I'm truly excited about what happened in Oakland. You guys were awarded our Chamber of the Year in 2020 because you understood. You raised $1 million and then provided grants to local businesses that weren't able to facilitate those through traditional and non-traditional banking relationships. And the U.S. Black Chamber is doing the same thing here in Washington, D.C. Our third one is really contracting. And we do that really from three different vantage points. The first one is, where is the federal government spending its money? And while I was in Oakland, I had the opportunity to participate in the federal program called the 8A program, the number 8, the letter A. And it really provided me with the opportunity to expand across the country, nationally as well as internationally. It is a program specifically for minority-owned firms, and it gives you the opportunity to really bid on $1 million plus contract opportunities. And so we mandate and try to measure where those contracts are being spent. And I will say that we were successful this year to expand that program from a 9-year program where it was historically to a 10-year program. And the reason why that's important is because the average firm that's doing in the 8A program is around $10 million. And if you ask any small business owner about being able to make an additional $10 million a year, they will all say, hey, that is welcomed. And so we were successful at getting the program extended. But at the same time, and I tell folks this all the time, it makes no sense to get a contract February 1st and not get paid until June 15th. And the federal government is notorious for being the worst payer. And I felt that and experienced that through my time while I was in the 8A program. And we know, we just discussed, that Black firms pay twice the rate of a loan as our white peers. So now we're forced to go and borrow money to carry the float of the federal government. Under the Obama-Biden administration in 2009, there was a program created and implemented called the Prompt Pay Program, which is a 15-day payment cycle. So now I get the contract February 1st, I start work, I invoice February 15th, I'm getting paid by the end of the month. So now I can make my payroll, I can make my payables, and now I can carry the float of the federal government. So we're making sure that we watch the activity of the federal government. Our second vehicle in the contracting side is where our corporate America dollars being spent. We have our corporate advisory council with some of the largest corporations in the country, and they have all committed to spending 15% of their dollars with Black firms. The challenge is they will say, yeah, Ron, we'd love to spend more money with Black firms, but either we can't find them or they don't have the size and the scale. Right. Thus, the Buy Black platform that you just discussed allows us now to find Black-owned firms across the country. We can certify them to ensure that they're Black-owned, and now we can provide those resources as well as relationships, because what we're feeling that is going to happen is mergers and joint ventures and partnerships and acquisitions where it makes sense, so that we can have the size and the scale to be able to do the business. And then the third piece of that contracting side is really about that $1 trillion that you always hear that Black folk have to spend. And usually that's corporate America saying, hey, Black consumers have $1 trillion. We got to market to them to ensure that they're spending that money with us. Our conversation is, we have $1 trillion. How do we keep that $1 trillion in our community so that we have sustainability to make sure that we grow and prosper? The fourth pillar is entrepreneurial training. And these are the types of experiences that business owners need. What you're doing here this afternoon is knowledgeable. During the COVID fourth quarter last year, we did a survey, and 72% of Black-owned businesses said they went out of business because they did not reach out to get expert advice. The technology was not there. There was no mentorship there. And so they felt like they were lost, but they never searched organizations like the Oakland African American Chamber or Get Fit to find the resources that they needed. And then our last one is about chamber development. I just got off a call here with the FCC talking about what Black businesses are facing across the country. And I was able to say, well, early on, we were able to go to our chambers across the country and ask what was going on. And we said we were going to lose 35 to 40% of our Black-owned businesses nationwide, and no one heard us. And then when the Federal Reserve came out and said, guess what, you lost 41% of your businesses, then everybody was like, how did that happen? We need to make sure that we're engaged with one another. I always say in Washington, D.C., I'm only as strong as my weakest chamber. And so where we have weaknesses, I have to make sure that I'm providing them the resources and the relationships that they need to be able to stand strong as well.
Wow, you guys. Wow. Ron, I'm listening to you. I'm taking notes. I'm also just digesting the wealth of information and knowledge, getting the backdrop of why things are the way they are, and not only why they are, but what we're doing to transition that, especially with the new administration. One of the questions that was asked earlier was by one of our members, also Nicole Felix, and she said, "What can we as chambers do better?" And I think the question, Nicole, if I'm phrasing it, not verbatim. But what can we do to think broader, especially during these times? I think it's time for us to take off this mentality of, like everything in a vacuum, and really broaden our perspective of what we're capable of and the power that we have. I think we as a community, Ron, don't really understand the power. You kept talking about that $1 trillion that we represent, and yet and still we are the biggest consumers of everything. And how do we shift that? And what would you recommend for the chamber to play active role in helping that mind shift?
Two things that I would say. One, I want to make sure we're thinking big, right?
Yeah.
We got to think big. The one thing that I always did is I always thought big. And I want people to understand we have lost 442,000 Black-owned businesses across the country. That's the bad news. The good news is they all had customers. They all had some type of business or a product or a service that they either sold or provided as a service. They all had vendors. They all had some type of product that they were providing. And so what we cannot do is to lose those revenue dollars from our communities as well. So I would tell folk, like what I did, is look for other businesses that are in your community that may be able to support your dream, your vision. If you're a great writer, and you know someone that's a great producer, and someone else is a great marketer, and someone else has great content, put that together, and that may become a communications company. We don't have to do it by ourselves, but we make sure that we got to do it. This is an opportune time while people are forced to be at home to really put pen to paper and say, this is who I want to be when I come out of this. There's a lot of new opportunity here. The businesses that made it through, and there's a new survey that came out that said Black businesses feel better about the future than any other community. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we got new leadership, but a lot of us feel like this is our moment. I'm here in Washington, D.C., and corporate America has committed $66 billion of spending, philanthropic donations, and commitments to Black initiatives. That's Black companies, that's Black nonprofits, that's Black organizations. They've made the commitment. It is on us to hold them accountable, to make sure that there's transparency, and most importantly, that we're prepared when we get the opportunity. And so I want to make sure that we're thinking big. The second thing is a lot of Black people have historically talked about reparations. I'm one of them. I have always felt like this country has a huge debt to Black people.
Yes.
But we've always been reluctant to have that conversation because we knew that it was such a big number. But yet we saw during the first literally 2 weeks of the COVID virus that the country committed to spending literally $660 billion for the COVID relief. We're saying, well, wait a minute. In 2 weeks, we've made a commitment to spend $660 billion for a pandemic that has lasted 2 weeks, but yet Black folk have been facing a pandemic for hundreds of years and never had that conversation. We know as a community that we were very instrumental in getting the Biden-Harris team elected. And so for us, we are asking, what is the return on our investment? And I think the biggest return that we can have is to open up the doors to do business in Africa. Africa is the largest continent with the largest amount of resources that we are not involved in. And I think as a community of business owners, it is ripe for us to look at doing business in Africa. Don't be scared. The opportunities are there for small and large businesses, but we've got to start to think. 98% of this country's growth in reference to business opportunities is going to come from outside of the boundaries of the United States. Hispanics do business in Mexico. Asians do business in China and Japan. We're the only group of people that feel like we must do business in America. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with doing business in America. But guys, we have our own country and continent as well. And they are looking to do business with us. Keep your eyes on the U.S. Black Chamber as we are going to continue to expand our relationships across the globe.
Oh my God, y'all, if you're not pumped up, then I can't help you. I don't know what to do for you. If you're not running to tell somebody what you heard today, if you're not engaging with your local Black chamber, you're not joining so that you can be in the know. You know, my grandmother, I say this all the time. I know you guys get tired of hearing me saying it, but my grandmother is my rock. And she taught me that nothing ever comes to a sleeper but a dream. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? And Ron, we have a few more minutes, and I'm going to hold true to the hour that I committed because I value and appreciate you taking out time to be on my platform. But Ron, how can we support you?
Well, first off, you can onboard your business at Buy Black. I want to find you. I'm not asking you to become a member of the U.S. Black Chamber. I want you to become a member of the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce. But I want to be able to support you through grants, resources, a lot of resources that we have, but we need to be able to know you. And then I want to end with a story from my grandmother, because I think a lot of people on the call have this myth that we all heard that goes, white people's ice was colder than ours. And as I grew up, I remember hearing that all the time. And I was a couple of years ago speaking on a panel for Reverend Jesse Jackson, and Reverend Sharpton said, yeah, but you know, this conversation about white people's ice being colder than ours. And I said, well, hold on, because you see, my grandfather used to deliver ice. And before there was ice makers, you would get a block of ice delivered to you, and you would put it in an ice box.
Like with the picks, the kind of ice you talk about?
Yes, you put it in an ice box. I had a chance to go to the Frederick Douglass home, and I actually saw where he had his ice box. And so my grandfather said, hey man, it was an early Saturday morning. He said, come ride with me as I go deliver my ice. I said, sure. So we get on the truck, and on the back of the truck, he's got blocks of ice. And he would deliver those ice to his white clients early Saturday morning. And we would get off the truck and take the ice and put it in their ice box, and it would keep their meats and milks and fruits fresh for 7 days. But by the time he got to East Oakland and West Oakland, in our neighborhoods, that ice had sat on the back of that truck all day and melted down and got chipped away. So by the time it got into our ice boxes, it only lasted 5.5 days. So you see, there was some truth to the myth that white people's ice was colder than ours. But because it's Black History Month, and we're talking about the historical perspectives that Black people have on this country, we created the ice maker. A Black man did. So right now, today, there's nobody's ice colder than ours. We can get cubed ice, crushed ice, flavored ice, filtered ice, and even colored ice. And when we start to see our businesses, our communities, our nonprofits in the same vein, we ain't got to worry about nobody else's ice. We have cold ice, as cold, if not colder, than anyone else's in the country. And we created the platform that keeps it cold. Thank you so much, Carol, for having us on this afternoon.
Oh my God.
A lot has been said over the last 4.5, 5 years about making America great again. And I know a lot of people here have heard me say this, especially my chamber presidents, if you were on the call. I believe that as Black people, we want a great America as well. But in order for there to be a great America, there must be a great Black America. And in order for there to be a great Black America, we must have great Black businesses. And in order to have great Black businesses, we need great Black chambers. And most importantly, we need great Black customers. And so, Cheryl, I appreciate you having me on this afternoon. I appreciate your audience for listening. Again, I ask that you onboard your business at Buy Black, BYBLACK, and you follow us at usblackchambers.org to make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable to the same things that we're asking of this administration and of you. Thank you.
Ron, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Everybody, I want to thank you also for joining us and just being a part of this dialogue. Please do share this broadcast with your network. Spreading information is our key, and information that is accurate, information that's telling you the truth. He told you about the ice. Pay attention to the stories that have been told today, and do share this information. Please do join in next week. We will be, hold on a second, sorry about that. We will be having next week Tiffany Newhouse, who is a consultant, and please do chime in so you can hear all about her. And as a matter of fact, next month is Women's Month, so I'm very excited about that. Please do sign up for my newsletter if you're not already on my newsletter. We send out great information about things that are going on and helpful tips. And as Ron has already stated, please do tap in and join Buy Black. Please do that. Register your business today and join your local chamber. We're looking here to support you. And Ron, thank you again, my friend. Thank you. I appreciate you. God bless everybody. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Cheryl.
Thank you.